Are you putting rusty nails in the soil of your plants? Maybe you're giving them mineral water, the lucky things. And how about ice? Well, they're just 3 of the 9 plant myths we'll bust wide open in this video to save you some time and money, as well as keep your plants firing on all cylinders. Let the busting begin. Carbonated water. Good enough to drink for both you and your plants, apparently. Yep, lots of folks are out there giving their leafy pals soda, sparkling or mineral water. I mean, that is the very definition of a doting plant parent, isn't it? Spending all that money treating your guys and gals to San Pellegrino every week. What a treat. If this is you, then I absolutely admire your dedication and clear love you have for your collection. So why would you do this then? The supposed benefits are an increase in the uptake of carbon dioxide. You know, the stuff we breathe out that plants breathe in. They breathe it in their foliage, of course, so they must love it on their roots, right? Sort of. There may be some benefits, such as increased levels of minerals like calcium, magnesium and zinc, whatever they do, but there are some risks, namely the acidic pH of carbonated water. I won't bore you with all the science, mostly because I'm no expert in it myself, but here's what you need to know. Plants need a neutral pH in the soil. Anything that is too acidic or too alkaline reduces the plant's ability to absorb nutrients through the roots. It's called nutrient lockout. So giving your plants slightly acidic water, like carbonated water, actually negates the thing you're trying to do. You can test the pH of your water at home too with one of those test strips. I've done it, and thankfully my water is pretty much neutral. So save yourself some money and stick to using tap water that you've dechlorinated with water conditioner, and I'll leave a video about that in the top right corner now. I've been conducting a secret little experiment for the last 3 months where I've been watering this Stromanthia with ice cubes. Ice cubes, Mr. Sheffield? What on earth for? Honestly, I have no idea. You see it quite often as a cheeky little hack to water your orchids as well as other houseplants, but honestly I've absolutely no idea why you do this. I guess the idea is to combat the evils of overwatering, every plant parent's greatest fear. You know, the ice slowly melts and this somehow prevents the roots from getting too wet all at once. And obviously this is silly. As any Sheffield Made Plant subscriber will know, subscribe if you're not by the way, you have to drench the soil fully when you do come to water it. Overwatering is much more about frequency than volume after all. The thing I found with doing this to my Stromanth is that I have no idea how much water I'm giving it, so there's actually a big risk of underwatering. It's difficult to judge volume of water when it's in solid form, so it's a bit of a guessing game on how much to add. It's also really hard to pile on the amount of ice I think is required, so you need to go back when the first batch is melted. I mean, talk about a waste of time, so don't bother, I see no advantage. I don't think giving your plant ice necessarily kills it, because mine still seems to be doing fine, and that leads me on nicely to my next myth. That cold water from the tap will shock the roots and kill the plant. I've never been a fan of this one. We're supposed to fill our cans up with water and leave them to sit on the side to come up to room temperature. I mean, how long is it going to take to water our collection when we need to fill our watering can up 10 times? Too long, my plant friend. I've never done it and I never will. If a plant is as sensitive as that, it can do one as far as I'm concerned. I just think plants aren't that precious. I mean, obviously they are to our hearts, I just mean they're not going to melt when we give them cold water from the tap. It's slightly anecdotal admittedly, but I've never had a problem with this. We have cold winters here, and I freely water my plants straight from the tap, and none of them have any signs of frostbite. It's not like it's liquid nitrogen coming out of the tap after all. No, so save yourself some time and bother, my plant friend. Most of us hate the idea of creepy crawlies running amok in the soil of our houseplants, turning it into a place where they can freely procreate. Believe me, I'm that person too. I was so preoccupied with keeping gnats out of plants that I used to chuck the old soil in the bin when repotting a plant for fear there were thousands of gnat eggs ready to hatch into annoying adults to fly in front of my face. Anyway, it's pretty much useless now anyway, right? The plant's used up all the goodness of the soil and it's best to repot into some nice fresh stuff you just bought from the store. Well, honestly, this is a waste. Old soil can indeed be reused. You don't really need to worry about the nutrient value or beneficial microbes in the soil of your indoor plants, provided you have them on a decent fertiliser schedule. I mean, plants can grow perfectly fine in totally inert substrates after all. Inert just means chemically inactive, by the way. New to me too until a few months ago. Anyway, I've got this rather handsome little monstera living in just perlite. In fact, he's grown from a wee little wet stick all the way to this beautiful specimen solely on perlite. He's grown up fit and healthy because I feed him the Weetabix he needs on a regular basis, and he also soaks up those lovely sun rays to turn into energy. Not literally Weetabix, by the way. Houseplant Focus, a fertiliser that seems to be working well for my plants. So when it comes to repotting, don't throw it out. If you are concerned about the little gits in the soil, then a cheeky hack is to put the soil in an airtight bag and lob it in the freezer for an hour or two. Should kill off anything living in there. Now, how about the myth that plants can't tolerate any amount of zero light? I mean, do you fret about your little green buddies when you're going away for a week or two because you've closed the curtains to keep prying eyes away? I used to take all my plants into my dining room where the windows don't have any curtains because I was scared I would come back to a graveyard in my living room from the lack of light. Imagine doing that amongst all the carnage of getting 2 kids ready for a holiday. Not fun. Well, my plant friend, it turns out this idea that plants will melt in zero light is in fact a myth. And I've got the evidence to prove it. Yes, check out my recent video where I kept 10 plants in pitch black for 3 months to see how long they'd last. There was a bunch of all our old favourites in there, from the humble snake plant to the popular monstera to the fussy spider plant, and none of them batted an eyelid until 5 weeks into the experiment. In fact, most of them lasted a lot longer. I'll let you watch the full video without spoilers, but it sure was eye-opening. Well, for me anyway. So close those curtains without any guilt, my plant friend, and don't bother wasting your time moving things around. They'll be just fine. When you open up your crusty old toolbox, I bet you find yourself some rusty old nails. Where's the best place for these then? No, not the bin, your plant's soil, silly, or so we're led to believe. Yep, stick a rusty nail or two into the soil of your monstera and it will apparently slowly oxidise and release ions into the soil. Why is this so great, I hear you cry? Beats me. Iron is a micronutrient that apparently plays a crucial role in the formation of chlorophyll, the pigment used for photosynthesis. So adding an additional source of iron through the rusty nail promotes healthier and greener plant growth, right? Again, not so much. Firstly, the release of iron from the nail is unpredictable. Who knows how consistent or how much iron will be released into the soil? Could be too much, could be too little. Secondly, we have pH problems again. The rusting process can make the soil more acidic, and as I mentioned earlier, plants aren't so keen on this. There is a fantastic alternative hack to giving your plants the iron it needs, as well as a bunch of other macro and micronutrients that doesn't involve dealing with crusty old nails. Yes, fertiliser. Fertiliser has been perfectly formulated to give your little green friends exactly what they need to thrive. As always, my plant friend, it's best to keep things nice and simple. I've banged on plenty of times on this channel about the evils of chlorine in our tap water and the harm it does to our sensitive souls like calophyres and spider plants, but don't worry, I won't bore you with it again. Well, not entirely. I've often said that distilled water is a great option because it's pure and won't slowly poison the plant. Well, the trouble is that distilled water is perhaps a little too pure. I don't want to worry you too much, but let's talk about nutrient leeching. Distilled water lacks the minerals and nutrients found in tap water, and this actually makes it hungry. Yes, hungry for nutrients. Might sound a little fanciful, but do hear me out. When it comes into the contact with the soil, it can act as a solvent, dissolving and carrying away some of the nutrients in the soil. You might be thinking, but Mr. Sheffield, I regularly feed my plants so it's all good. And yes, this can be great, but there can be a problem. Let's say you fertilise every month, and you water your plants roughly every week. The first week you fertilise and all is good with the world. Lovely nutrients are given to the soil for the roots to feast on. Now week 2, 3 and 4 is where it gets interesting because you are watering with hungry distilled water, so to speak, and it leaches the nutrients from the soil and drains it through the holes in the pot. This essentially means your plant is not getting the nutrients you thought you were giving it. If you've noticed stunted growth, then this could be the problem. Worth considering. To help combat this, try adding a diluted amount of fertiliser for every watering, but be careful with the dosage though. Indoor plants suck in the winter. Can I get an amen on that? This is all because it's so damn cold, right? Well, no, actually. Plants don't suffer in winter because of the cold. They're living inside our homes after all, and hopefully you've got the heating on sometimes. Or all the time if you're living in Cards or Sheffield. Anyway, the biggest reason is light, or lack of light. Tropical plants come from, well, the tropics, and they tend to get 12 hours of daylight every day of the year down there. Compare that to living somewhere there are seasons and much less light in the winter, and they get all flummoxed and start throwing their toys out the pram. It's not their fault, I guess, it's just not where they're used to. So, to have better plants in winter, they need more light. Grow lights normally. My recent video on this goes into much more detail, so do have a look. Link in the top right corner. And Mr. Sheffield's #1 pet peeve when it comes to indoor plants is the idea that NASA's study in 1989 proves that plants purify the air in our homes. And sorry for referring to myself in the third person, by the way. I mean, all we need to do here is to have a couple of snake plants in our bedroom and we can do away with any dedicated air purifier we might have to help us sleep, right? Well, no. This is actually nonsense, and in this video here I explain why, so check it out. And don't forget to subscribe for more fun.